This week, I'll be showing you when and why you'd want to change your aperture, shutter speed, and ISO. These are the three most important settings on your camera when it comes to exposure. If you change any one of them, you'll make the image either brighter or darker. As well as changing the exposure, each one of them will affect the image in different ways. So when do you change what? If you want as much as possible in focus, get your f number higher, up to about f16. This will make the depth of focus deep and bring a lot of the image into focus. With certain lenses, it'll mean that the whole image is in focus, from your foreground to your background. Drop the f number as low as possible. This will make the depth of focus small and can give you the power as a photographer where you want the viewer to look. People tend to be drawn to what's in focus, so this is very useful. This is an image shot at f1.4, and this is an image shot at f16. Shutter speed controls motion blur. If you want no sense of movement in the shot, get your shutter speed as high as the conditions will allow. The lower the shutter speed, the more likely that moving things in your shot will be blurred. If you want motion blur to give you the sense of movement, get your camera on a tripod and your shutter speed down to about half a second or slower. You can see on the slow shutter speed, the sea has smoothed out. On the high shutter speed, the sea is very crisp and clear. Just be careful of how low you take your shutter speed when shooting handheld. The rule I always use is to keep your shutter speed at the same or higher than the focal length. What I mean by this is if you're shooting at 50mm, I would keep the shutter speed at 1/50th of a second or faster. ISO is basically how sensitive the sensor is to light. We're all told or have learned to keep the ISO as low as possible, normally around about 100 when there's lots of light about or your camera is on a tripod. This will give you a clean image. But sometimes this is not possible due to the low light. So ISO basically gives you the flexibility to be able to get the shutter speed and aperture where you want them. This image has been shot with low ISO. This image has been shot with high ISO. If your ISO is too high, the image will get noisy. Digital noise isn't that attractive and it starts to break up the image. So try and keep your ISO as low as possible. So you can see each setting has its own use. And remember, if you have good exposure and you change one of the settings, you'll have to change one of the other two to compensate for this. As an analogy, these three glasses represent the three different settings. The water represents how much light you need for a good exposure. If I want to change one of the settings, I have to change one of the other two settings. So you can see I want to open up my aperture, i.e. take the number lower. I would take either my ISO or shutter speed and drop that setting to compensate. So now you can see the aperture is bigger, letting more light in. The shutter speed is faster, letting less light in. There's still the same amount of water in the glasses, i.e. there's still the same amount of light. If I was just to open up aperture, this would let more light in. So you could see the water has increased, i.e. your exposure will increase. If I want to slow down the shutter speed, I'd have to increase the f number or reduce the ISO, so let less light in the other two settings. Basically, when you change one, you have to compensate with the others. I hope this has made sense and helped you get your head around these three settings. Once you do, taking photos will become a lot easier and it'll better your understanding of photography in general. If you have any questions, leave a comment below or drop me an email. It'd be great to hear your ideas on these three settings. As always, give us a thumbs up if you like what you see, a thumbs down if you didn't, and for weekly tutorials, hints and tips in photography, subscribe and turn on notifications. I'll see you in the next one.